for boys. It's the freest time of all, and a man never regains what he had once. Bees and fireflies at night. They were made to be discovered by boys. It's a time for walking with no place to go, for exploring, for skipping stones across a creek, for running for no reason at all. It's a time for catching a fish, and it's a time for dreaming, which boys do well. It was in the summer when the two boys reached into the mailbox and pulled out a dream that would come true. Dear Billy and Johnny, go to bed and dream tonight. Dream about the biggest fish you can imagine in the wildest country you may ever know. And when you awake tomorrow, Uncle Ray and I are going to fly you to Saskatchewan and make all those dreams come true. Love, Uncle Bill. From the window of a bush, the boys get their first look at a broad and harsh land that not many have ever seen. The Cree came here first, and the Athabascan, and after them the trapper, the prospector, and the adventurer who knows no call but the wild one. And now there had come two boys with freckles who had never caught a big fish before. This is the village of L'Orange, mostly Indians, some fishing camps, a Hudson Bay store. This is to be our home. Really, it was mostly a launching pad to the fishing holes in a lake that sometimes seems to stretch as far as the sea. They came with a million freckles and hair as red as the sun when it sets in a tropic sea. Sorted out, they are Johnny, to the left, an 11-year-old package of mischief, and Billy, his older brother and the quieter one. This is one of the young Ray Ostrom, who has walked the cold salmon streams of Norway and cast the warm, lazy waters of the jungle for the tarpon, but who has never forgotten what it means for a boy to catch a big fish. And I'm the other, Bill Cullerton, and I never really grew up either. It was late in the afternoon when we came to L'Orange, nearly supper time in fact. We had come a long ways, but Billy and Johnny, who had never been in a plane before, had come 3,000 miles by jet and by bush plane to catch a fish the size of which grown men dream about. Supper could wait. We went to catch a fish. Johnny got his first lesson in what boys must do when they fish with their elders. They lift all the heavy stuff. Bluegill fishing was never like this in the creek back home. There was no electronic depth-finding gear, and until now, their tackle box had been a red worm in an old tobacco can. But there was one last thing before we set sail. There always is when a boy goes fishing. Johnny had forgotten his own personal tackle box we had given him. And if a boy is to fish with men, he wants his own gear. There was not much left of the day, no time to go far, but an Indian at the dock had told Ray that across the bay there was a small cove where the water was shallow and the weeds grew tall, and northerns lived there. The water was quiet, the late sun as pale as a full moon. I chopped off the motor at the mouth of the bay and let the slight wind drift us in. There's an element of suspense in fishing with boys whose most sophisticated equipment has been a cane pole and who've never used a spin casting reel before. A fellow's not sure when the boy winds up whether he's going to catch a fish or gig the old man. But a closed-face reel makes an instant caster of anyone, although it may take a while to convince a boy that fish don't live in trees. Johnny was aiming for the brush pile along the shore and caught a tall spruce instead. While Ray was untangling Johnny from the tree, Billy was ignoring his brother's problems. He had come to catch a fish, not to watch his brother hang a lure in the top branch of a spruce tree. And then it came. All those dreams since the letter had come, all those miles of hoping, they were all right there at the other end of his line. A monster had truly struck his lure. The northern's a mean cuss. He'll hit just about anything thrown his way, and he'll fight like a madman when he discovers he's been tricked onto a hook. Ray was trying to rig Johnny with a new lure, but Johnny had never seen a fish like this before, and he got as excited about the chase as Billy, who was trying to crank the fish right through the ferrules of the rod.
Hey, let me see it here once, Will.
I had hardly released Billy's fish when Johnny was in the water with the lure, and had struck his first northern. Johnny had never met a bluegill or a crappie who could travel across the water like that, or had teeth that could cut a line as cleanly as a surgeon's knife.
I'll help you. Fatties. Oh, look at fatties. Jesus, that Rapala, you didn't take it, didn't swallow it either. You need a hook out, Ray? No, I got a long needle nose. Okay. Johnny boy, I think you're going to be the host.
Johnny didn't like it, not a bit, when Ray released the first northern he'd ever caught in his life, the biggest fish he'd ever seen. But it was another of the lessons he would learn in the wilderness. You kill only what you can eat.
They are pretty.
I backed the boat to the mouth of the cove again, and we took one more drift, the boys casting the sides of a beaver hut along the shore.
That beaver house there, the beavers, they'll keep adding on to that house, and they'll live in that house for many, many, many years. Oh, well, then the water gets higher like now, then they got to build a new room to get away from the water, so they get a dry room. They build an upstairs room. That's right, to build a big rambler.
They have carpet?
And they live in that in the wintertime, same house the year round. Whoa! Well, where's he going? Got another one of them big saber-tooth.
We forget sometimes, when we become men, how big a fish can become in a boy's eyes. We forget that the fish we would throw away or swear at because it's wasted our time, we forget that fish has become a ton and the greatest prize of all when a boy has caught it. And that's what fishing's all about, I guess.
Johnny, you're going to be the northern king. You're going to be the northern king of the day. I'll tell you that. Johnny Holly Loki. They have some wonderful, wonderful fish. They're big fighters.
Well, that's good news.
Although it was near dusk then, there was little wind, and the heat clung to the sheltered cove, and the cold, clear water felt good across a boy's face. We thought we'd troll a little, partly to try to catch a fish, and partly to draw a breeze across the boat. Then it was Ray's turn to get a little excited. The locator showed a sharp drop in the bed of the lake, and there had to be a fish somewhere about. For a moment, we thought both boys had strikes at the same time.
Here, just step back. Did he get off? No, he's not off. Oh! Let go. That's it. Oh, they're great.
But Billy apparently had just cross-fouled his lure. It was Johnny who had the action. This was a big fish, and Johnny wanted him in the net right away. That's the surest way in the world to lose a fish, and about 50 feet of line. Johnny was about to get another lesson in how to shake hands with a big fish that lives in the wild North Country. The fishing rod then becomes the deadly weapon, the fisherman's best friend. Johnny had to learn to use the power of the rod against the strength of the fish. He had to be taught to play the fish with the rod, not try to drag him in with a reel. Cranking and pumping at the same time just doubles the odds for the fish. I wanted Johnny to lift the rod slowly, let it handle most of the fight, then use the reel to crank down the line. It was a lake trout, a sparkling beauty. It was the first laker Johnny had ever caught, the first either brother had ever seen. They never had anything like that in the bluegill hole back home. Night was beginning to picket the wilderness then, and it was time to go back to camp. We'd been gone only a few hours, but dreams come true quickly in the far north, and adventure had brushed swiftly across the two boys and left behind a promise of more for tomorrow. There was time in the bright, cool morning to visit a moment, to stroll a little with the ghosts of the past. We walked beside the burial cribs of the Cree and along the tiny marker of the trappers who had come this way, a half-forgotten cemetery matted with caribou grass and wild strawberries. But then it was time to go fishing again, to make more dreams come true. Ray had charted a route that took us far up the blue waters, past mineral-tinted rocks that seemed to have been painted by the sun. The boys had never seen such glories. We came at last to the rapids that are made from a great waterfall. Far above, a river thunders through the wilderness, and then with a scream, plunges off a cliff 50 feet high and crashes into the lake below. In the quiet pocket where the rapids begin to lose their strength, the walleye come to feed in the early morning. We worked the edge of the fast water, trolling slowly. Johnny got the first hit, and he played it well.
What we got here? What is it, Ray? I don't know. Bring it up.
Walleye.
Oh, I hope it's a nice, big, golden walleye. A walleye!
Hey, go slow. That's real slow. That's real slow. That's real slow. Real slow. Right now, don't lift anymore. Don't lift anymore. Let's start. Lift up a little.
Wait a minute. Don't do nothing.
We'll tell you when, Willie.
Willie, don't do nothing.
We'll tell you when.
Okay, Johnny. Oh.
Oh! Oh!
Oh, broke you off.
But he learned another lesson. You don't win them all.
And he bit you off.
Ray thought we might pick up the action a little if we went around the point, away from the rapids, and drifted the deeper shoreline.
Oh, look out, you trout.
Number 4 torpedo.
Look out, you trout.
You got number 4 torpedo? Okay, now do that and then reel real quick. Reel up about 10 cranks real quick. As fast as you can reel.
It worked. The brothers hit a double. I was giving Billy a crash course in precision casting when Johnny got the first strike. Billy was in first, and Johnny followed him in moments. 2 black and gold delights, the prize of the shore lunch in the north. The walleye is not the world's greatest fighting fish, although he can get a little stubborn when he gets bigger. But he's a great piece of merchandise in a frying pan.
Oh, look at that. That Rapala, you didn't swallow either.
You need a hook out, Ray?
No, I got a long knife, needle knife.
Okay.
I like this.
Johnny boy.
One more walleye, and that should be enough lunch for everybody. The wonders seemed never to stop for the two brothers. They had seen a tree grow almost as tall as the sky. They had caught a fish with teeth like razor blades, landed another that caught the colors of the sun. All these things they had done and seen for the first time, and the wonder is the greatest then. And now for the first time, they can inspect another treasure in their bag of dreams. We set about picking a lunch spot along the shore. But Billy wanted one more cast, and we gave him his chance in calmer waters past the rapids. And he made it good. There was no mistaking this strike. It was a northern, and this was truly a big one.
What do you got there?
Whoa!
Oh, where's he going?
Got another one of them big saber tooth.
Oh, we'll need a minute.
Really? Hold that for me. Yeah, bring it around.
Yes, out there.
Whoa!
Right out there.
Ray reached for the fish with the caution of a man who's been bitten more than once. A northern carries sharp teeth, and he's mean enough to bite anything within range.
Oh, that is a big one. Look at that. Oh, man.
That's mine.
Oh, good, good.
That was a dandy of the morning. It was big enough even to satisfy a boy's dream. But man does not live by fishing alone. It wasn't easy to convince the boys of that, but we were hungry men, and we would not be denied lunch. We found a place where the dark boulders rise from the blue water and touch the green forest. Ray began to fillet the walleye. It's an art, filleting away the bones of a fish. It takes a sharp knife and steady hands. But when the job is done right, only the meat remains. While the skillet warmed over a birch fire, Billy and Johnny used a metal detector we had brought along to search for buried treasure. They never told us whether they found any. Johnny was fascinated with the muskeg that grows as soft as a mattress and has rocked more than one man asleep at night. There's a magic to the walleye. Bone him out, roll him in flour, and drop him in deep bubbling fat, and he turns the color of gold. Although mothers would not approve, he's best eaten at such times with the fingers and never with a fork. We had joined another party, and when lunch was done, we told stories of bears and other wild things that lived in the forest and frightened men. The brothers listened a while and then crept away. And now you're about to witness one of the great backlashes of all times. They had heard the stories of the bears that ravage a camp and send men into a panic, and they thought they would try a little fun on their own. They would rattle the brush and make deep-throated growls until their elders would think they were attacked by a battalion of bears and run for the boats. It might have worked, except the brothers met a resident of the wilderness they hadn't planned on. Nobody wants to be friends with somebody who's just been hit by a skunk. There's only one way to deodorize two boys who've been covered with skunk. It's cold and it's cruel, but it works. They scrubbed and they got rid of the skunk, but the freckles remained. And sometimes even a de-skunking can be fun. On Ray's chart, the Indians had marked a spot past the Narrows and into Hunter Bay, beside an island of a sugarloaf shape. The water there is deep, sometimes 100 feet or more. We were looking for a slope that slid from 50 to 80 feet, and Ray found it on the locator. Now the brothers were to learn one more style of fishing. The lake trout lays deep in midsummer, even this far north. It takes a lot to stir him. Billy and Johnny had to learn a new form of jigging. It's not easy, but it works. The idea is to create the effect of a bobbing minnow. When the jig hits the lake bottom, Ray and I told the boys, give the rod a solid jerk, then hand the rod right back to the lure. That makes the spoon flash, and that brings a sparkle to the lake trout's eyes. From overhead, a seagull swooped and skimmed the water. And this is taken to be a good sign for a boy who wants to meet a fish. And it was. Billy hit right into one. And for a moment, he forgot the lessons he had learned before. He was going to crank himself right out of a fish.
Be retrieved. Don't pump it. You're giving a slack line. Come on, baby. Just steady retrieve. You're giving a slack line. He's coming.
He's a beauty out there.
I don't know. He looks too big.
It took both of us, Ray and I, to cool him down, to play his fish, with the patience that a boy must learn if he's to become a man.
That's it. That's it. Nice and steady. Steady retrieve. You're giving a slack line. He's coming.
He's a beauty out there.
I don't know. He looks too big for the net.
Can't see him.
That's it. Nice and steady. Don't give him slack. Just keep your hand on.
Huh? Are you ready?
No, he won't jump, but he'll splash on the surface.
All right, lift him up now. Lift him up. Don't crank. Lift. Just lift. Just lift. Torpedo. Look, get your hand off. That's it.
Oh,
That's it.
nice.
That's it.
It's a long wait, but it's worth the fight.
Huh? Are you lift him up?
Woo!
Look at that.
That's a nice big lake trout. You know that?
Now I ain't gonna kiss it again.
You ain't gonna kiss it again?
Isn't that a dandy?
Look at the hands of the child.
Oh, look at them teeth.
That's a nice fish, Billy, my lad. There are men in this world who cannot say they've done the same as you have this afternoon. You can put that one in your bag of dreams and call it real.
Hey.
We would try again with a different bait. Billy had his dream in his pocket, and he was content to sit on it. But Johnny still had to hustle his, and he wasn't about to let off on the pace. And it wasn't long until Billy had another lunker. By then, we were beginning to attract boats in the wilderness the way a bear draws flies.
Hey, Johnny, here, you help your brother net him. You help your brother net him. Don't get up on the boat. Hey!
Oh, he's out here. There he is. All right, that's it. Go, get him down. Get him down. Get him in. Oh, he's off the hook. That's the third one on a torpedo, Ray.
Is that the third one?
Third one.
But this was a day that belonged to boys, and men could wait another time. Billy hugged his fish, and Johnny fretted impatiently because he had one more trout to go to break even with his brother's dream. He got it when there was not much left of the day, and the wind began to blow cold across the forest and the broad waters. There's no fooling now in Johnny. There's a quiet excitement in Billy, but Johnny flies at the world, wide-eyed at its wonders, except when he's got a fish on, and then it's a serious business.
Billy, don't do nothing.
We'll tell you when.
Okay, Johnny. Okay.
All right, now lift up. I don't lift any. Don't crank it.
Oh, get the net under him. Oh, he won't go to the net.
A boy who's already caught his fish can be generous then with his brother, and Billy handled the net that brought in Johnny's catch. It had been a long way to come to capture a dream, but boys can do almost anything when it's summer and the world is theirs. They will carry the dream with them as long as they live. And if we were too old now to share it with them, we had the second-hand thrill of helping them make it come true.